in Hesiod's Theogony, the Cyclopes are called up by Gaia in an effort to overturn or overthrow heaven, right? So once the Cyclopes are called up, heaven comes down and he lays with Gaia and he straightens her out, it says. And then Gaia gives a sickle to Cronos, her son. And the sickle is being a tool for harvesting and like working the land. Sickle itself is, well, you can translate it to adamos or adamite or adamant, right? Like to damos is to subdue someone, so to be damos, or adamant is to be unsubdued, to be, right, to you can't have your opinion swayed, you're gonna do something. And then he's going to make the earth fruitful and produce, and it's time that allows the ability to form. And the almanac, right, essentially is like a calendar, right? This overthrow of heaven by Cronos is ruled by time. Time becomes the most important factor or god in the world. Reading further from Hesiod's Theogony. And then we all have a sense of this, right? We all wake up around the same time. We look at the clock. We're waking up by the alarm clock. It says time to get up. Time says to get up, right? And then time also tells us when to go to bed. Time tells us when to eat. Time still rules us in a very, major way. We're still ruled by time, but you could say that Zeus or God rules us because there's other wills, right? We have other ways to get around time and stuff. So, reading from Hesiod's Theogony. And heaven rejoiced in his evil doing, but vast earth groaned within, being straitened, and she thought a crafty and evil wile. Forthwith she made the element of grey flint, and shaped a great sickle, and told her plan to her dear sons. And she spoke, cheering them, while she vexed in her dear heart. My children, gotten of a sinful father, if you will obey me, we should punish the vile outrage of your father, for he first thought of doing shameful things. So she said, but fear seized them all, and none of them uttered a word. But great Cronos the wily took courage and answered his dear mother, Mother, I will undertake to do this deed, for I reverence not our father of evil name, for he first thought of doing shameful things. Geometry is the study of shapes, and the 100-handers are the unmoldable shapes or lines of the earth, I imagine. Essentially, we have no geometry, these shapes. And then the plow and geometry allow one to straighten and measure the land that can be used, right? So you kind of, additionally, Cronos is the infinite expanse of time, right? So it's time itself, which is the best metric for predicting the change of seasons, right? Still today, we farm based off time, not what the sky looks like on a particular day or for 3 days in a row, right? We do it by time, by the calendar. And so that could be, so the myths, you could see how this could all kind of be deceiving, right? That the sky, especially over thousands of years, right? So constellations change. So over thousands of years, stars will get brighter and duller. And then you'll have like solar eclipses and all kinds of weird stuff, right? That if you didn't really know, conscious of kind of what was out there, you could see how like a superstition could come, and then calendars could get messed up, right? But if you have a way of telling consistent time, you have a way to have a stable economy, right? But we do live in a paradox, right? Not an orthodox, in that the sun, well, we don't follow the same exact track, but for the most part it is, right? Time is an elusive or abstract idea. So Cronos is said to hide away, right? His mother conceals him. He ambushes his father from a state of crypsis. Even today, we think of time and death or ghost from the past with the word crypt, or like crypto or cryptic. It's like hidden under the ground, right? And then when Cronos castrates his father Uranus out of the blood is born the giants, or Hesiod says these gigantic megaliths, right, are born. And from this we can tell the seasons, right? So they're like these pyramids, or like the megaliths of the Bronze Age, or maybe even the before then, right? That's what we say when we say time has kind of overthrown them, and out of these the giants are born, these gigantic megaliths. Hesiod, he says that Uranus and Earth lie together in love, but it's like philotes, it's fealty, or they've made this kind of feudal society, and the pyramids or giant megaliths are born as a result of this fealty. And it allows humans a way to tell time, essentially. Cronos, the pyramids, And ziggurats are these giant megaliths, right, that we know, well, the ones like in Babylon and ancient Sumeria and then in Egypt, right? And they have significance with regards to the heavens and the sky and telling time. But they're also, two of these cryptic nature, right? Like like Cronos or the Titans or some of these pharaohs that they're hidden underneath there, right, at this time, forever. How could you begin to build the pyramids, though, without the knowledge of geometry and shapes, right, and angles? And for what purpose? They had to probably have a purpose if you're going to spend all this money, right, all this wealth that you've accumulated on building them. So they had to have a purpose. In Exodus, during the plagues, there's the plague of blood, which we can say is like the castration of Uranus. And there's a lot of plagues, but I'm just going to mention a kind of few to say that, well, we can compare Theogony to Exodus or any myth, right? They're all kind of creation myths. They all kind of follow the same path. So, again, there's another plague that says, like, the families turn on each other. And that's like the Irenes, right? The Irenes are born, the Furies are born from the blood of the castration. And then there are locusts. There's a plague of locusts, right? And then Cronos hides in ambush, right? So ambush in Greek is locus, right? It's a locos. And there's this darkness. There's the plague of the night. And that's kind of when Uranus is castrated, right? He's castrated at nighttime. And then there's this plague of the skin disease or boils. And then we can describe that by Aphrodite's birth, where the foam, right? She's known for being the foam goddess. And then she's known for the place Cythera, where, again, Aphrodite is the foam goddess, so it's Aphro foam, and then deity is deity. And then Cythera means to encircle. So it's like this encircling foam. And then there's also talks about the skin, right? When you read Hesiod's Theogony about Aphrodite. So it could be this like encircling foam on the skin, or just like a boil. So again, there's more to it, but I just wanted to say that we can compare them, right? And then when we think about Egypt, we think about the pyramids, right? So understand that the 100-handers and cyclopes also have a mathematical significance, right? Along with, I've mentioned the grammatical, right? That the cyclopes and 100-handers have this kind of grammatical, but they also have a mathematical significance, right? And that has to do with the megaliths, right? The birth of the giant megaliths, and also the Titan War. So let's read about Cronos overthrowing his father heaven. So from Hesiod's Theogony. So he said, "And vast earth rejoiced greatly in spirit, and set and hid him in ambush, and put in his hands a jagged sickle, and revealed to him the whole plot. And heaven came, bringing on night, and longing for love, and he lay about earth, spreading himself all upon her. Then the sun from his ambush stretched forth his left hand, and in his right took the great long sickle with jagged teeth, and swiftly lopped off his own father's members, and cast them away to fall behind him. And not vainly did they fall from his hand, for all the bloody drops that gushed forth earth received. And as the seasons moved around, she bore the strong Uranus, and the great giants, with gleaming armor, holding long spears in their hands, and the nymphs, whom they call Malay, all over the boundless earth." So after Cronos castrates Uranus, he takes his genitals, and he throws them into the sea. And the genitals we can think of also as councils, like it's this like medium or media. And so he's been cut by time or divided by time, right? The time divides the councils, and it's important. We know this today. Time divides all our councils, divides all our days, and when you go to work, all your time is divided out, like what you do and stuff, and then time rules us. Still, in some forms, right? And then out of the foam, from the semen of the castration, Aphrodite forms, and that's why she's called Aphrodite. That's what Hesiod says, right? So when Hesiod tells you something, he means it, right? Like, don't fight Hesiod. And he says the cyclopes are called the cyclopes because they have a circle on their head. Well, that's why they're called the cyclopes, right? That's why Aphrodite is called Aphrodite, because she's formed from the foam. And, of course, we can connect Venus or Aphrodite with the Sumerian Inanna, or the Babylonian Ishtar. So Inanna is important, right, because she's probably the most attested of their gods. So if you read their myths, a lot of the Sumerian myths, they're so fragmentary that I can't get a take on some of these gods. I can't really do a good comparison, right? They have like one poem or two poems, and it's all fragmentary. But Inanna, yes, some of her stuff is fragmentary, but she has so many poems that we could just tell who she is, right? She's like Venus in a lot of ways. And then I can explain. So and it's important because if you read the myths, it sheds some light on Hesiod, right? So you're not just reading Hesiod. You have more than just one piece of text to confirm kind of your biases, your hunches. And we want to look into what exactly happens at the castration of Uranus, right? Because you read Hesiod, it doesn't really tell you everything, and you always want to learn more, right? Why did they build the pyramids? Everyone wants to know. So we confirm it's the building of these megaliths, or it's the moving of Inanna, or this ascension of the Inanna or Venus cult, right? And the temple, or these megaliths, is where she's worshipped, and it's to tell the time of the sky, right? So Inanna comes from the sky; she comes from heaven. She's from Uranus, right? So let's read the mythic narrative about Inanna. Having drunk cleansing water from the river, Inanna stamped on the scorpion, cut off its tail like a lion. It bellowed in an angry roar, but its cries died down. She threw it and made it secure. Having heard its cries, poured forth the clay of creation, and laid it. The great lady of heaven delivered those words to An. Having heard those words, An slapped his thighs, and his voice filled with sighs of grief. What has my child done? She has become greater than me. What has Inanna done? She has become greater than me. From now on, the normal length of daylight becomes shorter, and daylight converts to nighttime. From today, when the day's watch is 3 units long, daylight is equal to nighttime. And now, when the day began, it was indeed so. An, who created gods and humankind, gazed at holy Inanna. Unable to describe this arrogance, Anne was unable to describe this arrogance. My child, you did not say you were able to capture Inanna, where Inanna, again, is the temple, right? It's the megalith. Inanna, you did not say you were able to capture Inanna. Inanna should be as firm as heaven. It should not be toppled. Its name should be the settlement of the land. Mankind, all the people should prostrate themselves at her feet. And now, under that sun and on that date, it was indeed so. She had captured Inanna from An. She secured it. Now Inanna speaks of the Inanna as the house that is the place of the lady, the goddess who has attained her triumphant position. Inanna, who has attained her triumphant position, declares in the good place, I have captured Inanna from An. So Inanna has captured the Inanna temple from An, where An is, Uranus in the Greek mythology. In the Sumerian poem of Inanna that I just read from, it says the sky says from now on night becomes equal to day, right? It's a solstice, I imagine, and the Inanna temple was we know it's a megalith type of structure, right? It's a ziggurat, it's a huge pyramid, and it's made out of stones, and it's located in the ancient city of Uruk, and we know the region as Mesopotamia, and apparently it was to tell the sky, or time with the sky, or with this priestess Inanna, right? And this Inanna temple, it was built something like 7,000 years ago, right? And over time, right, it becomes this huge ziggurat. And then with the rise of the Akkadians, led by Sargon the Great, right? This coincides with the rise of Enlil in Inanna in the Sumerian pantheon, right? And they replace the sky deity An, who was worshipped at the Inanna temple, right, in Uruk. So, in the poem, Inanna cuts off the scorpion's tail, which is like, I'd imagine it's like the penis of Uranus, right, in this castration in Hesiod's Theogony. Because if you read the Greek, Hesiod says that Cronos cuts off what can be described, like in the translation, is like this scorpion tail or something, and that basically the juice or the blood or the semen is squeezed out of it, right, and it's thrown into the sea. So it's kind of like the same in the Sumerian myth, where again Inanna, she cuts off the scorpion tail. So and then we're going to read further from the poem Inanna, in a new poem. It's called Inanna and Ebih. So to set in position and make the throne and foundation firm, to carry the might of the weapon which bends like a tree, to hold the ground with sixfold yoke, to extend the thighs with a fourfold yoke, to pursue murderous raids and widespread military campaigns, to appear to those kings in the heaven like moonlight, to shoot the arrow from the arm and fall on fields, orchards, and forests like the tooth of the locust, to take the harrow to the rebel lands, to remove the locks from their city gates, so the doors stand open. King An, you have indeed given me all this, and then ... and then more lines. You have placed me at the right hand of the king in order to destroy rebel lands. May he, with my age, smash heads like a falcon in the foothills of the mountain. King An, and may I, your name throughout the land like a thread. So it's a little fragmentary there. In Hesiod's Theogony, the sickle used to castrate Uranus is given to Cronos from Gaia. So Gaia hands it to him. And then Hesiod describes sickle as like the tooth of a bird of prey, right? So the serrated edge of the sickle is like a tooth of a bird, right? And additionally, Cronos is hidden in ambush, right? The ambush is locust, or it's like the locust, right? The insect that we both know from the plagues, but also from, again, this ambush of Cronos, or of Uranus by Cronos. And then the locusts come out of the ground, right? And they come out of the ground like plants. And then Cronos, he's like the time, right, is related to the growth of plants. They come out of the ground. Because in Theogony, Hesiod says that grass grows right under Aphrodite's comely feet, right? The grass grows from her feet, and she grows out of the semen itself, out of the foam. And on the page right before, the hectacares, or the hundred-handed, or I'd imagine it's like the plowmen, they're brought up, and they bring forth growth, right? The arms grow. The arms grown are the branches on the crops that produce food, right? If you read the Greek again, it says like they produce food, like these branches. And then reading more from the Sumerian poem Enki and Ebih, reading more from the Sumerian poem, and there's like more confirmation again with this when reading Hesiod's Theogony. So, for a second time, rejoicing in her fearsome terror, she spoke out righteously. My father Enlil has poured my great terror over the center of the mountains. On my right side he has placed a weapon. On my left side he has, in its fragmentary, something's placed. And in my anger, a harrow with great teeth has torn the mountain apart. So again, in Hesiod's Theogony, Gaia gives Cronos a sickle in his right hand. And then he stretches his left hand out in ambush, and it's like in the poem. So it's worth mentioning. There's more to it, but I don't want to make this like all about Aphrodite or Inanna. What's important is that Venus, or Inanna, signals the beginning of the farmer god Cronos, or rule by time, right? It's after his dethronement of heaven. So all this happens with the birth, again, of these giant megaliths that come out of the castration of heaven, and it's done by time. And you're ruled by time. We understand being ruled by time, right? That we have to get up because of time. We have to go to bed time. And time has divided our councils. We go to work. Our meetings are divided up by time. It's not like just random. We end because somebody says a word or something. We end after a certain amount of events, right? And that's time. But, well, maybe sometimes our meetings do kind of end when the boss, right, the powerful guy, the guy with authority says the meeting's over, right? The meeting might run over, or you might work longer, you might work out longer than you thought expected, because you're pushed on by this like will, right? The determination to power or a gain of wealth or something. But there's more important things we've learned to kind of, time is important, but it's not like it used to be, right? We don't have to go inside when the sun sets, or at certain times we can't go outside the house, or we have to work certain times of the year, right? In a sense, that is true, but it's not all like that. We don't necessarily have to take off for holidays. We can work on holidays, or we get off for holidays as well, right? We don't have to necessarily work every day. Time rules us in certain situations, though, and that's evident, right? And that's told through the story of Cronos overthrowing heaven.